Good morning, welcome to part 14 of my Around the Kent Coast Cycling Challenge. We're here on the Isle of Sheppy. It's a lovely day today. It is in fact Easter Sunday, so instead of sitting at home eating Easter eggs, I've come out on my bike and I can't think of a better thing to do on a Sunday morning. So hopefully you join me for the entire route. Let's get going. So the route today starts at the Isle of Sheppy Bridge, which is probably about half a mile behind me now, going past Queensborough on the southern edge of the Isle of Sheppy, going up the west coast of the Isle of Sheppy, past the docks and towards Sheerness. So it's going to be a great journey today. Hopefully you enjoy it. Let's get going. So I found a really nice spot on the river here. I'm just going to pan around to show you a few bits I can see. So behind me, over my left shoulder, you'll see a few old boats disintegrating. As I pan around a bit further, you'll see in distance Chetney Marshes, which we visited last week. And right in the distance, you may just see Grain Fort, which is kind of out to sea. And behind Grain Fort, right in the very distance, you see Essex. And where we're heading next is actually Queensborough, right in distance there, which is very interesting. Now, Queensborough is well known for several reasons, but one reason is Admiral Lord Nelson actually lived there and learned a lot of his kind of naval ability at the town. And he actually lived with his mistress, Lady Hamilton, somewhere in the town. So that's very interesting. I will show you a bit more as we cycle through it. So let's get going. Queensborough is a small town on the Isle of Sheppy and is located in the borough of Swale. It grew as a port near the Thames estuary at the westward entrance of the Swale, where it joins the River Medway. Queensborough Harbour offers moorings between the Thames and Medway. It is possible to land at Queensborough on any tide, and for that reason many boat builders have made the town their home. Queensborough today still reflects something of its original 18th century seafaring history. Some of the buildings from this era still survive. The church is the sole surviving feature of the medieval period. Right, let's carry on around the western edge of the Isle of Sheppy. So we've just cycled through Queensborough and we've come out the other side, and the river path just ends behind me, as the land is actually now Sheerness Docks, so we can't cycle through that. We're going to cycle around it in a minute. You may see a quite cool wind turbine behind me. But what I want to talk about now is just across the Swale. You may see in the distance is an island which is called Deadmans Island. Now that's got quite an eerie name, and it's actually got quite an eerie tale to it as well. So I think we should go and have a closer look. Horror stories have been handed down to generations about this mysterious site known as Deadmans Island. It lies at the mouth of the Swale, opposite the towns of Queensborough on the Isle of Sheppy, off the North Kent coast. the uninhabited mudbank is owned by Natural England. The island was used as a main burial ground for men and boys who died of contagious diseases on board floating prisons known as prison hulks, which were moored all the way along the Medway and off the Isle of Sheppy more than 200 years ago. Rising sea levels and coastal erosion over the years have begun to slowly wash away their final resting place, leaving wooden coffins and skeleton remains sticking out of the mud. This is only visible when the tide is out. The remains are being washed out into the sea and will be difficult to rebury. This is truly an eerie sight and should be respected. It is totally out of bounds to the public and landing is not allowed. Let's move on from this horrific story and carry on around the coast. So we're just cycling along the route past Sheerness Docks now. It's quite interesting because their main import is new cars. So I'm just going to quickly show you the biggest car park I've ever seen. So here we are back on the coastline. We've just cycled all the way around the Isle of Sheppy Docks. As you can see, that's behind me. There is actually a big pile of rubbish. I'm sure that's being shipped off to somewhere not very exotic. Just in the docks behind me, there's another old fort. Unfortunately, you can't get to it because it's actually on the private land of the docks. And it's Garrison Point Fort. So let's just go and have a closer look at that now. Garrison Point Fort is a former artillery fort situated at the end of Garrison Point Peninsula at Sheerness on the Isle of Sheppy. It was built in the 1860s in response to concerns about a possible French invasion. It was the last of a series of artillery batteries that had existed on the site since the mid-16th century. The fort's position enabled it to guard the strategic point where the River Medway meets the Thames. It is a rare example of a two-tiered casement fort, only one of two of that era in the country. In 1944, the threat of invasion or seaboard attack had diminished to the point that the fort was reduced to care and maintenance status. After the war, the fort was used by the Royal Navy Auxiliary Service as an emergency port control centre in the event of nuclear war. Part of the fort's disused magazine was converted into a bunker housing nuclear defence officials. The fort was decommissioned in 1956 when the UK discontinued its coastal defence programme, and the structure was sold off to the owners of the adjacent Sheerness Dock. Let's carry on around the coast. Now we've just reached Sheerness town now. Now an old industry that Sheerness used to be famous for was the Sheerness Steel Works, which unfortunately went bankrupt in 2013. Now this is a really sad story because a lot of the island used to work there, and it was a real blow to the area when it finally went bankrupt. But another sad thing is a lot of the workers actually lost their pensions, which was real sad. And because of this, the government set up the Pension Protection Fund. So hopefully in the future this wouldn't happen again, and kind of has protected thousands of workers to this day, which is kind of a good thing coming out of a bad situation. But there you go. Let's carry on around the North Sea. A bit further along the coast between Sheerness and Minster is Barton's Point Coastal Park. Set in 40 acres of outstanding natural beauty, Barton's Point Coastal Park features a saltwater lake, a section of the Sheppy Cycle route, and is a perfect location for camping, bird watching, orienteering, flying a kite, water sports, picnics, or dining out at Boathouse Cafe. It also includes a 9-hole pitch and putt course, nature trails, sculptures, adventure playgrounds, a miniature steam railway, and community events are run there on a regular basis, including themed open days, water sports events, circuses and fun fairs. Barton's Point Coastal Park is a fun day out for the family. Thanks for joining me today for part 14. We've done a lot of cycling through Queensborough and Sheerness. It's been really good. We've seen some exciting stuff. So next week we go on past Minster and on to Laysdown-on-Sea. So that'll be very good. Hopefully you'll join me then. I'll see you in part 15.